Welcome to Sweet Tea and Tacos. This is episode number 3, podcast number 3, and we're talking about kitchen knives and other cook's tools. Last time we talked about pots and pans. We're talking about kind of setting your kitchen up if you're new to cooking, if you just got married, or if you're finally moving out on your own and setting up your first kitchen, or maybe you're cooking more now during quarantine, that type of thing. So let's talk about kitchen knives. Now, when you go look for kitchen knives, a lot of times you see these big sets with 15 knives or 12. Now, what do you really need? What type of knives are you looking to start out with? Do you need all those knives? How do you start?
Yeah. Okay, the short answer is no. You don't need all those knives, at least not right at first. If you've got a very limited budget, you don't. There's 3 basic knives that when I was selling knives I would recommend, and that I would certainly still recommend today. And those are going to be probably the top 3 in our kitchen that we use the most. Mm-hmm. So one is a chef's knife, which is sometimes called a cook's knife. 2 would be something with a serrated blade. Mm-hmm. A lot of times you will think of those as like a bread knife. Mm-hmm. But there's also something called a serrated utility, which is smaller, which is incredibly versatile, and I can come back to that with some more information. And then the 3rd would be some type of paring knife, which is a very small knife that can serve a lot of different purposes. But it's going to be for smaller tasks, things like cutting olives, or just doing some small cuts on vegetables and that type of thing. Also, on the chef's knife, there's several sizes, and that's one big consideration. They typically come in 6, 8, and 10 inches, and that's going to depend on preference, but really how big your hand is.
And there's different shapes too. It's different styles. Yeah,
there are some different shapes. Some have more of a curved blade for kind of a rocking, cutting motion, and then some are very straight across. It's kind of more of the Asian style, where it's more of an up and down, kind of a sharp motion. Mm-hmm. But like, I prefer 6-inch chef's knife.
Yeah, it fits your hand better.
And Dave goes for a 10-inch.
I got bigger hands. Yeah,
for
and
sure.
I like there's also kind of in the Asian, more like a vegetable cleaver. There's santukos. Mm-hmm. They're different, but they're basically just a chef's knife, but they're a little wider blade. Right. And I grew up cooking with a vegetable cleaver, and it's even deeper. It's like 3-4 inches deep. Mm-hmm. And you can use it kind of like a scraper, and once you cut your vegetables, you can kind of use that to scrape them up and throw them in the pan. So I kind of I grew up with that. But there's, basic is find out what fits your hand. Is that what yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And we can talk about that more, but a big thing, and especially if you want to make an investment in some good knives, is you need to hold those knives in your hand before you buy them.
We were just talking about, we saw some beautiful knife sets at a store the other day, at one of these warehouse stores.
Right, we were going to get stocked up, on groceries.
But they had some nice stuff, but you couldn't put them in your hand, and I wouldn't. They're good prices too, but I'd want to hold one before I spent that much on a set of knives.
Yeah.
So. Yeah.
And
in the serrated knife, so you've got one you like to use. There's a bread knife. A lot of people are familiar with that, but you've got one, like you said, a serrated utility you use all the time. You use it for bread.
One of my favorites. I do sometimes use it for bread, but what I use it for most is peeling tomatoes and things like peaches. There's just nothing better to get that skin off. Right. And it's kind of funny, David,
I can't do it.
He won't even try. He's just like,
nope.
Here's the tomatoes. You got to do it. We've been
I've tried. I'm
married for 21 years, and he still won't.
I just destroy them when I try it. I don't know. You've got a much more delicate touch on that.
But yeah, that serrated utility, it'll just change your life. It's an incredibly versatile knife.
And then a paring knife, maybe.
Maybe. You can get by without it. You and I have talked about this. A long time ago, before peelers were invented, a lot of chefs and cooks use the paring knife to do that, to pare the skin off. We prefer a peeler for that kind of thing. Sometimes people use paring knives also for, like I was saying, small tasks like chopping olives, or maybe you want to chop a small thing like a radish. But they can also do creative, like making a rose out of a tomato or something.
Yeah, I'm not doing that.
We don't do that kind of thing very much. But I mean, a paring knife is nice to have around.
Right. Yeah. So, chef's knife, serrated knife, maybe a paring knife. So what about there's a lot of other things as far as not just knife shape and the type of knife, but, what they're made of.
Right. Yeah. Well, I'm going to let you talk about that. So
there's a lot of exotic materials out there, but kind of keep it more basic. You're looking at stainless steel or carbon steel. And that's really the two biggest groups. A lot of the higher end knives are going to be carbon steel knives. Japanese knives. The high end chef's knives are going to be
German knives.
German knives. A lot of just mostly carbon and not as much stainless. Stainless steel, you're probably familiar with. Easier to care for. A little more durable. Carbon steel knives not only can rust, but can be etched by acids. So when you're cooking, you need to be cleaning it quite often. But on the flip side, they're very, very, very sharp, and they hold an edge a long time, and they're tough. But the stain, the rusting and the staining is kind of an issue you just got to be careful with. So, if you're just a home cook, or if you're a cooking enthusiast, most of the time stainless is going to be just great for you. And there's a lot more newer stainless steels, types of metal, that have more carbon or are becoming more like the carbon knives that the high-end chefs like to use. But with the advantage of they're stainless, and if you want to throw them in the dishwasher, you can.
That's right.
And I've got some knives I bought before we got married, and they're still great. They're stainless steel, knives. And so if you invest in a good quality brand knife of good materials, it's going to last a long time. The handles are, my dad's got some old carbon knives that had wood handles. And they've lasted a long time, but you can tell that they wear off. These aren't wearing down because these are plastic handles, heavy duty polyurethane or whatever. So, that's another thing to think about is the handle materials. Because a wood handle, you wouldn't want to throw that in a dishwasher. That'll ruin it over time. So, if you want an ease of care, just kind of be able to cut with it, whatever, and clean it easily, stainless steel is probably your best bet. As you get down in your career in cooking or your skills improve and you want a really sharp super knife, look for a good high-end carbon steel. Yeah. So kind of talking about that, how are they made? How does that affect kind of what quality of knife you get, how it's made?
Right. Well, okay. So I guess lower end or entry level knives, like those stainless steel knives, but also some carbon steel are made this way, are made from a sheet of metal that's actually like rolled out and stamped. It's kind of like cut out like a cookie cutter, and there's nothing wrong with that. And those can produce a fairly good knife. But the higher end knives are forged. So I don't know if you've ever watched some shows on TV like Forged in the Fire and things like that, but it's a process of taking the molten metal and then creating it by hand, or they may do it by machine these days in the factories. But it combines, like David was saying, the carbon and the stainless together, and just that process of forging in the high heat is going to produce a really good, strong
structure.
Knife.
And generally you're going to look at it's going to be a forged knife is going to be a tougher, more durable.
Right. It's going to last, in theory, if it's well taken care of, a lifetime.
Yeah. Like I said, those couple knives I've had, we've had for 20 plus years.
Yeah.
So now, how does that how do the parts of the knife, like the design of it, how does that matter when you're looking at what knife you want to get?
Right. Okay, so the basic parts of a knife are the blade, the tang, and excuse me, the bolster and the tang. Now, in the stamp knives, you don't always get the bolster, which that's the middle part of the knife. But the bolster is a very important part in a high quality carbon steel knife because it provides the balance. If you think about a scale, and kind of the two ends and something it's got to pivot on, to hold it. And then the tang is the part that runs through the handle. And some tangs are somewhat short and may not go the length of the handle, but a really good balanced knife is going to go the full length of the handle. And that's why we really recommend going to a store that knows a lot about it and putting those knives in your hand and just seeing how it feels. And
you may not have a knife store where you live. You may not have a cutlery store, but if you generally a fairly large city or even a medium-sized city is going to have something like that, go check them out. And that's what they want you to do, is feel that knife and see how it fits in your hand.
Right, and certain handle styles appeal to certain people.
Right, like I have a hard time with my hand. My hands start to hurt after a while. Like if I use a handle that's too small, like that's the one I have that I had bought before we got married. It's a bigger, thicker handle, and it seems I can go work longer without any kind of fatigue in my hand.
And about the bolster also, that middle part of the knife, that's the part where you're going to want to kind of grip it. You do this pinch grip. And I would recommend just getting on YouTube and watching videos. There's a lot of really, really good videos out there about technique. You don't have to get extra fancy, but you do want to be safe and efficient and try to cut your vegetables and things in a uniform fashion.
Right, and that's the whole reason of the cutting techniques, is the uniformity of whatever size you're cutting helps with the cooking time. So that way it helps if you have even sizes of items, they're going to cook evenly, more evenly, I should say. Yeah. So what about, so we talked a little bit about cutting techniques. The other part with a knife is care. So we talked a little bit about stainless steel and the washing of it and versus carbon. But then you have the kind of sharpening or honing, and there's a lot of misconceptions. If you see knife blocks, you'll see that piece of steel. It's a lot of times called a sharpening steel, which is not correct. It's a honing steel.
That's right.
So as you use your knife, you're going to dull that blade. The blade is the edge is a fine point on that blade, and as you use it, it starts to get dull. The edge starts to roll one way or the other. Well, the steel, which is really a honing steel, what it's doing is just straightening that edge, the really fine part of that edge back out.
Right.
So that's going to help extend the life of the sharpness of the knife. Now, the different steels have some different sharpening qualities. Stainless steel, depending on the type of steel, may hold an edge. It's kind of weird how it works out, but it's real like knife geeky stuff. That you can have a knife that holds an edge but not be as sharp as another knife. It's weird. Like carbon can be really, really sharp, but and be durable, but not be as hold an edge. It's weird to think about. But anyway,
it's kind of more on a microscopic level
real
with the particles.
And nerdy. So yeah, the honing steel, and that's one reason to possibly look at a block.
That's right.
Because a lot of times they come with a steel, and plus you have a way to store it. You know, so that the knife block is wood, it's soft, and it maintains your edge. So
because if you've got your knives just in your cutlery drawer
bouncing around,
they're going to get knocked around and nicked, and it's going to really damage the edge of that blade.
Right, and so if you're looking at a knife set, that's one reason towards that. If you can't afford it, it's certainly not you can always add a knife block down the road. But a steel is good, and really to use it just about every time you pull your knife out is just steel it and hone it and get that edge straightened back out.
Right.
And then that's going to help it keep that edge, that sharpness, retain it longer. Then there's sharpening. Now, sharpening is actually removing of metal to put a new edge on it and get it back to the sharpness. that can be hard to do depending on the knife, and it might not be something you'd be interested in learning to do. And there's plenty of people out there that sharpen knives for $3, $4, $5 a knife or something,
Right.
There's always some at the farmer's market down here. You can talk at a kitchen store and, hey, do you know anybody that sharpens knives? And
yeah, I mean, there's somebody in our city that
right.
That's his.
There's several people.
His job. He has a knife sharpening company.
Once a year maybe.
Yeah. Depending on how
often you
knife.
you don't have to do it all the time.
Probably a year.
But honing it is going to keep it working. And there's another important reason to that. Not only you would think, well, yeah, if I'm going to have a knife, it needs to be sharp, but actually is safer.
And tell why.
The reason it's safer is a sharp knife is going to go through materials easier. You're not going to have to use as much strength
and force
to get the knife to go through material. Now, as if you got a dull knife and you're holding a vegetable or something and you're trying to push it through, there is more chance of that knife slipping, turning different directions that you don't need it to, than if it were a sharp knife and it just went right through.
Right, and you're more likely to have an accident.
Yeah, you are more likely to have an accident.
A sharp knife will cut you.
Oh yeah,
you have to be careful.
And oftentimes, what's interesting, I think, happens is people use a dull knife and get used to, I can do this in my hand because it's a fairly dull knife, or I may not be as careful with it because it's dull, and then I get a hold of a sharp knife and I go, whoa,
right,
and I've cut myself because I wasn't used to it going through something as easily. So but sharp knives are easier to work with. You're going to be able to work longer, less fatigue because the knife is doing more work and you're doing less strength work.
Exactly.
So what about some other items? We talked about knives. What are some other good things you need to start out with in a kitchen?
Yeah. Well, and I mean, a lot of y'all already know this. A lot of y'all have been cooking for many years. But like David said, we just want to offer information. Some of y'all are just getting started. And so we would recommend a really good colander.
What does that look like?
The kind of bowl-shaped
stainless
things
steel
with the holes.
Is that what's good? Stainless steel?
Stainless steel is a perfect material for that. They're going to last a long time.
There's mesh ones. There's ones with holes, and there's a lot of options. But just to have at least one colander.
Easy to run through the dishwasher to get clean for doing lettuce and berries and
straining pasta and washing stuff.
Exactly.
Also, I actually like a mesh one for straining soups. Sometimes it's nice to have versus a colander. One that's a mesh and it kind of does double duty, and you can not only wash the vegetables, but you could use it to strain out a soup or something. Right. So it's nice to have that.
Yeah, and they also sell just kind of strainers that they don't look like a colander. They have more of a long handle on them, and then at one end it has a little notch thing that will sit on the edge of a bowl.
I actually use it quite a bit.
Yeah, we have one of those.
Yeah.
All right. So also, and this is something that if you did buy a set of knives, it would most likely come in your knife block, but a good pair of kitchen scissors. And you want them ideally to be able to come apart. The ones we have, they come apart, and we pop it in the dishwasher, and they clean up well. Because if it doesn't come apart, you don't know kind of what's in there.
Right.
And it might be some salmonella or some E. coli from meat.
Well, it also helps you sharpen it because you can take it apart and you can hone it on your steel.
Yeah.
And the same kind of considerations with your knives. A lot of those, the same knife companies make the scissors. And so you're looking at stainless steel, plastic handles, and that type of thing. So, we have like 3 pair, and I think we're always looking for one because we use them so much. We use them
all the time.
Yeah.
And I just would recommend having kitchen shears. Don't be trying to bring your stuff for crafts into the kitchen.
Yeah, I mean, opening up meat packages. There's tons of uses for it.
Tons.
And then cutting boards. Talk about cutting boards a little bit.
Yeah. Well, the thing I would recommend is just, again, about the dishwasher. Get something that is made out of a material that's approved to go in the dishwasher for the high heat sanitation. We had a really, really nice cutting board when we first got married that was yours.
I had a big wooden one. Yeah.
And it was beautiful. The problem with that, though, is when we went to cut meat, then we were always worried about the sanitation,
Right.
and how do you get something like that clean? And if you use chemicals on it, then do the chemicals leach
Right.
down into the wood, and does that come out the next time you want?
And so
to
there's
use
been
it?
some research about that, and you can read about it online. You can Google it, and there's things. But, in the restaurants, I worked in a restaurant for a while. You worked in a restaurant. They use these plastic polyurethane or whatever it's made out of.
Yep.
And it's a softer plastic. It's not a hard plastic. And because you're able to sanitize it. Now, you can throw those in the dishwasher when you're at home. Restaurants, they use sanitation, spray on them, and they come apart. They break down, and you can put them in their big dishwashers. Wood, as nice as it is to work with, you have the sanitation issues. So, I mean, if you were disciplined enough that where maybe you had a wooden one for some things and didn't use it for meat, but the problem is even with garlic, and there's certain things that can have bacteria. So you just have to be careful with the bacteria. They are pretty, but there's that to consider. And then the other thing you'll see in some big box stores is glass. Don't ever, ever, ever use a glass cutting board or a ceramic cutting board, or it needs to be, think about it, softer than your knife.
That's right. That's right.
So we have a couple, 2, 3, the plastic ones. You can use it, throw in the dishwasher, and they're inexpensive. So the plastic ones are really our recommendation. The wood stuff is nice for pastry or whatever. I know when I cooked at the restaurant, I had the table I worked on was a butcher block top table, which is great for pastry. But any solid surface countertop is going to allow you to do that same kind of pastry stuff. So, and then what are some other tools that we need to think about? So we've got knives, we've got a culinary, we've got some scissors,
Right.
What else do we need to look at?
So there's graters, and that's things like box graters, but also something that, and I don't want to use a brand name here,
Right.
but it's a smaller grade.
It's a really small, plain.
Right, and it's good for things like very hard cheeses, say wedges of Parmesan.
Right.
You can do chocolate. You can grate chocolate. Even if you need to do zesting, like for lemon zest or lime zest, just to take that very outside part off. You don't want to get down in the pith where it's bitter. But
what's nice about the box grater is you can set it on the countertop, put it like on a cutting board or on a towel or something, and you got the force of the counter that you're working against. Whereas the flat ones, you got to set maybe across a bowl. Then they kind of constantly move around or something. And we use our food processor a lot for grating.
Yeah, it has an attachment.
And it's great, other than having to clean it up, which is just a simple grater is nice. And then the small one is kind of a handheld one that you, like Jen said, you just easily scrape some hard cheese or a spice or something real easy. Grab it and go.
But the box ones have, obviously, they have a different size hole on each side, and that can be pretty versatile.
Use of pushing it down and using the physics of the countertop to help you out there. Peelers, I'm kind of particular about my peeler. I like just the standard peeler shape. There's some newer ones that have been around for a while, actually.
Yeah, you like the one that looks kind of like
the old style,
a pencil or a knife,
Right, and versus a razor or like a T,
Right.
To me, and you can get them in ceramic and stainless. You got lots of options. Stainless, throw it in the dishwasher. We talked about that. Ceramic, you can't really throw in the dishwasher. But they're sharper. To me, it all came down to speed because I'm either peeling a carrot or I'm peeling a bag of potatoes, and for me, I can peel faster with the old straight style, and that to me was the difference. And I could get a fatter handle, which is my bigger hand, big meat cleavers here. Then I can just sit here and peel a bag of potatoes and knock it out really fast versus the T one. I felt like I had to go it just couldn't go very fast.
Yeah. Well, and there's, I will say, some really good peelers out on the market today. They're much improved from when, like, say, we were growing up in the 70s. It was just that little old kind of cheapy thing.
Yeah, with
that was all metal.
All metal, hollow handle.
Oh, those were terrible.
Yeah. So, you got peelers, graters, spatulas, cooking spoons, same conversation about wood. with the spoons.
That's right. I mean, a lot of people love
the wooden spoon.
The wooden utensils, and they are beautiful. I mean, I know there's some beautiful olive wood things out on the market, and they're gorgeous. And if you take care of them and use some kind of an oil on them occasionally,
but it's more care,
oil,
it's more maintenance.
They're
and if you've got kids and you're busy, it's just
I'd go
one more
with
thing.
Again, the stainless or some type of silicone
Or some sort of a modern plastic type of thing. That's good for the nonstick. We talked about nonstick pans last time.
That's right.
The silicone spatulas, they're heat resistant. That's really the difference with the spatula, because I'll use it in an egg pan, but you want that heat resistance with the spatula.
Right. The silicone goes up to, I think, like 500 degrees.
Right. Yeah, and then mixing bowls. You're always going to be reaching for some sort of mixing bowl to do whatever task. And we were talking about this earlier. We've got this great set, and I use great as a qualifier, that was sold real popular when we were.
They're still
real popular.
Still being sold today.
Is a set of glass bowls.
It's like 11
bowls, and they nest together. Oh, that's a great idea. It is and it isn't. What we found, and the funny thing is, we've had these for 20 years. They're very durable, but they're heavy.
Yeah, they're heavy as a set. Like if you wanted to pull the entire set out at once.
Well, and they nest together, so they're kind of designed to store nested.
Very big to very, very tiny.
Right, so you have to pull out the whole set.
Yeah, to get whatever size you need.
And it's heavy, and so you have issues with that sometimes because they're so heavy.
Right.
And then you have the concern about maybe chipping.
Glass. Like if you accidentally ding it. Oh, did I get a tiny piece of glass?
Right, because like maybe you got something on a spoon and you want to, maybe you're using a metal utensil and you bang it. Oh,
bing, bing, bing. Yeah.
You're worried about, So as much as I like them, at the flip side, I would prefer metal. Like a stainless steel nesting set would be great. I hope somebody makes one. Let me know. But we've got a couple. We've got 2 or 3 big ones. We got 2 big ones, like for big tasks, and a couple smaller ones. Then I like those a little bit better. I wish I had some of the small ones. Yeah. We also use a lot of ramekins.
I was going to say, along those lines, we didn't have any ramekins for probably the first 10 years of our marriage, but man, I mean, we wouldn't make it a day in the kitchen without them. And if you don't know what they are, if you've ever ordered creme brulee in a restaurant, it's usually what comes in. They're white. They're made of porcelain, which is a very high fire clay, and they have sort of a fluting or ridges around the edge. They're usually about maybe 2 to 3 inches high and about 4 to 5 inches across. And they come in different sizes, but incredibly versatile.
We're always grabbing a ramekin, throwing something in there while we're prepping. It helps prep, like you're getting ready to cook something. You can prep all your vegetables, and or maybe you're having tacos and you chop up some tomatoes and you got some olives and you got some other things and you throw them in ramekins, and here's all your.
I mean, last night we had it was a kit, but it was a Caesar salad, and I had the little grated cheese in one, and I had the croutons in the other, and just they're really versatile. They clean up really easily, and I don't know. We just love them.
Yeah, we use them all the time. Measuring cups, both liquid and dry. You're going to need those,
right? Because it's different for the whether it's liquid or dry.
So you need measuring spoons goes the same along with the same way. So a good set of stainless steel. Again, we've had this set for 20-something years, and it's stainless steel, pretty basic. Boom, boom. Measuring cups for liquid is a little different. Generally, they're clear, so you can see through them. Right. We've got a set. It's funny, now we're finally actually getting to this point where we need a set because the markings have come off. So you can't really tell. It's really hard to see now. So, but a good glass set.
Like a tempered glass.
Yeah, tempered glass set. There's a real popular brand out there, and they last forever. We've had it forever. We've never broken them or whatever. We've got 3 of them and in different sizes. You got like a cup, a 2-cup, and a 4-cup, They last forever. And so that's kind of,
I mean, there are a multitude of cook's tools out there, and I mean, my goodness, especially when I worked at that store, I mean, we would get all these different things in, and they were creative and really, really neat. But I'll tell you, probably half of them, we would all, the employees would kind of comment, probably half of them could be replaced with just a good old-fashioned paring knife.
Yeah, exactly.
Like there's. And I even bought one, but we have a tool that's to pull the stems or whatever you call the leafy part on a strawberry off, the top of strawberry.
Yeah, just to pull that little thing. Well, just cut it off.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know.
But hey, that's a a capitalist society where
we certainly are not bashing that.
Inventing things, and some people might think it's useful. They like a really pristine strawberry and don't want to cut it. Hey, that's fine. But you don't need these things. I mean, you don't have to have them to start out. As you're cooking more, you might find, man, you know what, this would make this one job easier. I can go find that tool, you know.
Right.
But if you want to start cooking, or you're getting more serious about your cooking, or like I said, you've just gotten married and this is one of your pet peeves is people are doing their registries.
Yeah.
Register for a lot of stuff, people. Don't register for one thing.
Yeah. Let me just speak to that.
We'll wrap up.
Yeah. People want to give you stuff. They're excited to celebrate people coming together and joining their lives, and they want to be generous. But if you don't give them a lot of choices,
options,
and a lot of price ranges,
right,
it makes it difficult. And then what do? Do they go off registry?
Right.
And then maybe you don't like that, and it's something you've got to schlep back to the store and
right.
take back.
And I know I'll never forget, we were registering at this one place, and the lady said, "Okay, we'll register here. You need to put in a crock pot." We're like, "No, we don't want a crock pot." We were very much cooking snobs at that point in time, and we're like, "Nah, we don't need a crock pot." She's like, "No, if you don't register for one, you'll get 4. So register for one, and then you'll get 1." It's like, oh, okay.
And I have to say,
she was.
We
correct.
did get a crock pot from your parents, and we love it.
We love it. We've used it.
We only use it for certain things, but they are very handy.
Oh boy, We'll talk about that down the road. So anyway, that's Sweet Teen Tacos for today. Take care.
Thanks.
Bye.